And in today's episode of Imagine My Shock, Tesla stock rebounding after the very short-term panic, up a mere 22.69% today, up $50 per share. If I didn't know any better, I'd think that the short-sighted investors who panicked out of Tesla stock in the last couple of days have just panicked back in. I did warn you folks, don't do anything stupid. And as James Stevenson points out, this is the second largest ever daily gain for Tesla stock. Its best daily gain in percentage terms, 24.4%. I just want you guys to take a look at this for a moment. If at any point in the future you erroneously think that your brain is big enough to time the market, if you think that short-term trading is a winning strategy over the long term and you're not battling against crushingly overwhelming odds of failure, just check this out. Let's count. The days that Tesla surged at least 10%, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60,000 times already. You understand? What's the point of trying to time the market on a stock that has demonstrated historically such intense volatility? Imagine you panicked and the stock's up 20% the next day. And I do have to say, I'm not super surprised. I was trying to warn you guys, don't do anything stupid. I don't know what's going to happen over the short term, but I was very clear in how Trump's tariff negotiation would play out. And I mean, hit a home fucking run, despite the narrative for most people, as always, being in total opposition to what I was saying would play out. We'll watch a couple of clips from Orange Man Bad, Trump himself, explaining the pause on the tariffs, the rationale and the reasoning, but let's read this post he made on Truth Social. Ladies and gentlemen, the art of the deal. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America to 125%. Previously, I think it was like 104, which had surged up from a fraction of that. Effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and this is the important part, folks, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, it's a rare day I can say with absolute certainty why stocks went one way or another. This is one of those days. The same idiots who panicked out of stocks over the short term, not realizing this was the inevitable outcome with Trump's strong negotiating tactics, are the same folks who are panicking back in today, causing stocks to surge. Now, I hate to be that guy. No, I'm actually kidding. I don't hate to be that guy at all. But I literally said exactly this would happen. Number one, despite what people think, these tariffs aren't going to stay in place at these levels. It's a negotiating tool to apply extreme pressure to cause countries that currently have absurdly high tariffs on US goods coming into those countries to reciprocate or completely drop the tariffs. And this is a pressure tactic to get them to the negotiating table. A couple of months from now, apart from a few brain-dead holdouts, just about every country will have dropped tariffs. Things will be back to normal and everyone will forget this even happened. And surprise the fucking prize, this is the hammer blow. The 90-day pause is 90 days actually for these countries to negotiate. This was always the outcome. It was obviously a negotiating tool. I said a million times. These tariffs, it's not, the tariffs aren't the point. The tariffs are to apply pressure to get these countries to come to the negotiating table. The tariffs aren't going to stay in place long term. Trump's not going to destroy the economy. He's not stupid. And of course, a lot of people, why doesn't Trump explain exactly what's going on here? As I said at the time, you can't show your cards. You can't show your hand. If you're negotiating and people can hear what you're saying about your plans and intent and strategy for negotiating, and you explain exactly what you're doing, oh, well, I'm not actually going to apply these tariffs long term. I'm just using them as pressure to get them. You can't do that because then they know. If they know your plan, you're not negotiating from a position of power. The people who were freaking out thinking that these tariffs would, a lot of people outed themselves as far more emotional than reasonable and logical over the last few days. Now, a few comments from Trump.
Sir, would you consider exempting some U.S. companies, maybe some larger companies who have been hit hard in the markets the last few days during this 90 days?
As time goes by, we're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been hard. There are some that, by the nature of the company, get hit a little bit harder, and we'll take a look at that, yeah.
So remember when I told you guys over and over that Trump wants to usher in an era of safety, opportunity, and economic prosperity in the United States? It was obvious from day one. He's not going to do anything that destroys jobs, destroys industries, causes a massive depression. And here he is now on the record, after the 90-day pause, when the panic has begun to subside, pointing out that they'll certainly consider exempting companies, especially those being hit super hard, as opposed to destroying the entire US economy. Imagine that. Now, regarding China, this is brilliant negotiating from Trump. The ball is in China's court. They're being dicks. They're going to learn a very painful short-term lesson. China exports into the US about 5 times the dollar value of goods that the US does into China. China are posturing right now, unwilling to negotiate, when all that was imposed was a tariff to bring them to the table to negotiate. And Trump's not stupid. He knows there's many companies in the United States who predominantly or entirely rely on imported Chinese goods, products, parts, etc. He's not going to let these companies implode one after another, but he needs to continue applying pressure to the CCP. So I'm just going to tell you guys how this plays out as well. Extreme intense pressure until China comes to the negotiating table, and then suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, there'll be a pause with temporarily reduced tariffs, maybe phased out over time as long as China plays by the rules. And 6+ months from now, everyone will forget this even happened. Now, obviously, if there are companies that are going to be massively affected, Trump's just on the record explaining they'll look into it. Certainly, they'll consider exemptions here. Imagine that. It's almost like you could have seen this coming because, again, the guy wants to usher in an era of safety, opportunity, and economic prosperity. And you can't usher in an era of economic prosperity if you destroy businesses, industries, right? Hello. So more from Trump in a moment. First, a few comments from the Secretary of the Treasury.
As I said, we've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global south.
And you think Secretary, how much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well. As I said.
So fancy that. Quote, this was his strategy all along. And the White House press secretary has a few comments as well.
If I could just add to what the secretary said, many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China.
So 75 countries, in fact more, have already called wanting to negotiate. Imagine that. More from Trump in a moment, but first, this from David Sachs. Quote, they did everything they could to create a panic. They predicted a Black Monday that never came. They became jubilant over an intraday correction on Tuesday. They were rooting for Trump to fail, even if it meant the market and economy crash. Fortunately, their hopes have been dashed. Trump has been vindicated. China is isolated and the rest of the world is lining up to negotiate new trade deals. Do you think this would have happened if Trump had asked nicely? Maybe if he had said, pretty please? Never. This was the only way to rewrite the rules of global trade. Once again, Trump was right about everything, and no lies detected. I was extremely consistent from the outset that this was a negotiating tool. He'd apply massive pressure, bring everyone to the table. People were panicking over nothing, not understanding the strategy here. The media, relentless. Even many conservatives on the political right were turning on Trump. What are you doing, Trump? So stupid to not understand he was using these tariffs as a negotiating tactic to bring people to the table. It's been brilliant to watch this play out. And obviously, Trump has balls of steel. Most people would have caved into the pressure. Oh yeah, okay, I changed my mind straight away. Instead, he refused to explain in detail that he was going to apply pressure to negotiate because you can't explain, like I said earlier, what your intent is While negotiating out loud, if the person, quote unquote, on the other side of the table will hear you explaining how you intend on negotiating with them and applying pressure with them. Now Trump explaining a little bit of his strategy in more detail.
Because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well. And they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal. And we have many.
Now, I do just want to add some clarification here, because Trump's absolutely right. At this point in time, with the truly astronomical tariff, over 100% on Chinese goods coming into the US, and we know that China, 5 times the amount of goods in dollar amount going into the US versus the US into China. Chinese leadership will be desperate to make these brutal tariffs go away. They will be desperate to negotiate. Trump has them by the balls. This won't last. Trust me. When all said and done, a great deal will come of this. And due to the truly astronomical amount of pressure being currently applied to China, economic pressure, financial pressure, it can't be too long before they're crawling on their hands and knees to the negotiating table.
Many other countries, as you know, many more than 75, and they all want to come, and they want to come here, or they'll go to Commerce, or they'll go to Treasury. We have our great senators here and congressmen. They'll call John, they'll do somebody, they'll go through somebody, but they're all calling, how do we do this? They all want to make a deal. Somebody had to do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible.
Love him or hate him. This is true leadership and courage from Trump. Held his nerve. It's got a massive result. He said over 75 countries now wanting to come to the negotiating table. Huge win. Truly remarkable, incredible to watch this deal making play out in real time on the global stage. Obviously, Trump now negotiating an incredible deal for the United States, getting an incredible result. All credit to Orange Man Bad. Remarkable to watch this play out in real time. And I have to say, I did say exactly how it would play out. It was obvious. It was quite remarkable to see some people losing their minds and not understanding what was happening here. Like just completely freaking out. The stock market panic made no sense. I'm on the record, guys. You can watch the last few days worth of videos if you missed them and hearing me saying how this would play out. To a T. Hit a home run. Why? I'm not a genius. I'm just not retarded. And that, folks, was the art of the deal. P.S. Dan Ives' Tesla's stock price target emotional panic reaction has left the chat. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs. This is what viewers of the channel had to say after trying AG1. I feel like I have a lot more energy since I started on AG1. Just got my AG1 in the mail. Legit feeling the effects after day 3. 3 months ago, I started AG1 and have been enjoying the evenness of alertness and energy that lasts the day. I just started the wife on it too. Are you convinced yet? Hey, it's worth trying, right? Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR or I can keep going. This viewer, after about a month on AG1, definitely a lack of fatigue in the afternoon. Pleasant side effect is that my coffee intake has imploded and is almost down to 0. One more? Yeah, why not? I honestly feel younger and will be continuing to use AG1. This stuff really is crazy good. I didn't think it would be, but this stuff is awesome. It really is what everyone is saying. One more? Don't mind if I do. I've just received my 3rd month supply. I've drank it every day. I have so much energy throughout most of the day. I'm productive, started a new business, started socializing, refurbished a boat. It's no coincidence. Thank you for your persistence, your integrity, and your insights. And look, these are not my words. These are not my testimonials. This is what you guys and girls are saying. Maybe it's 100% placebo effect. But even if that's the case, I think it's money well spent. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs.